a few things. And I think those things are very important. The first of all, what is important when we are trying to practice Satipatthana is to keep in mind that Satipatthana is the training of the mind. And Satipatthana Sutta is like the manual for training our mind. And therefore, whenever we talk about Satipatthana, we have to bear this characteristic or this point in our mind that we have the manual in our hand to train our mind. So it's a manual for training mind. So we just don't study Satipatthana Sutta as an academic exercise or as an intellectual exercise, but as a support to our practice. So the practice that we do in our system of meditation, as Dhyanacharya Nagajiva has said, that the Satipatthana offers a complete training path all the way up to nirvana, or the purification of our being, or to the liberation of mind. So if we practice whatever is taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, then we have the entire path all the way from counting the breathing to realizing the nirvana itself, or to purify our beings, or to liberate our minds. So we all know from our experiences that it's not easy to practice regularly. But as the Buddha has encouraged, that we have to practice daily on day-to-day basis. And as we have seen that if we do not practice on the day-to-day basis, then we do not, it's very difficult to enjoy the fruits of the practice. So why we think that this practice on the day-to-day basis is important? Because that's how we cultivate the stability of our mind. The goal of the counting of the breathing is to quiet our mind, is to calm our minds, is to make the mind stable. Because we know that our minds are not stable. They are always moved or agitated by what is called the 6 distractions, or what is called the 6 sort of corruptions. And these 6 corruptions are related to our 5 senses and the mind. So our eyes would always like to follow certain forms. Our ears would always like to listen to some pleasing sounds. Our nose always trying to crave for some, pleasing smells. Our tongue is always craving for nicer tastes, and our body is always craving for touch. And our minds are always running here and there, following various thoughts. So these 6 corruptions that our mind is involved in has the quality of distracting us, has the quality of agitating our mind. So in order to make our mind stable, in order to make our mind quiet, in order to make our mind calm, we practice what is called the Anapanasati. And Anapanasati, the practice of Anapanasati begins with what is called the counting the breathing. So we begin with the counting the breathing, and in our school, we begin with the reverse counting. Okay, as I said, that we don't force ourselves to count. We don't add anything to it. We just try to be aware, and we just try to be attentive. We just try to be mindful, or bring our mind to what is happening all the time as breathing process. So as I told you that this is a training manual, so I urge all of you to kindly keep on practicing the counting of the breathing. Though it is not mentioned in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, but that practice, as we have seen, was so basic that the need was not felt to include here. But the counting the breathing is very important, because that's how we stabilize our mind. That's how we quiet our mind. That's how we calm our mind. And the calm mind, the quiet mind, is the goal of counting the breathing. So when we start counting the breathing, what automatically happens is that our mind is cut off from these 6 doors that are always trying to pull our minds away. And we have seen that our eyes are always trying to go after the pleasant forms. Our ears likewise trying to hanker after, run after the pleasant, enticing sound, and our nose always trying to smell good things, and our tongue is always trying to taste something very pleasant, and our body is trying to feel that touch all the time, and our minds are running after the fanciful thoughts and ideas. So you see, it's like we are, like the Buddha says that we are like in the ocean, and there are these waves that are happening at all our sensual doors, and we get carried away by these waves. So what we need to do is we need to bring the mind back to the breathing, and the breathing and the mind has an intimate connection. If we calm and quiet our mind, our breathing also gets calm and quiet. And likewise, the more our breath becomes normal and natural, it stabilizes, the more our mind becomes very calm and quiet. And you will all notice these things happening in you when you practice what is called the counting the breathing. In the Indian languages, it is called ganana. And as we have seen in the previous class, that sometimes we are very careless. So when we are careless in counting, just try to practice counting from 1 to 10. And when we are careless in our counting, we shoot up, we count 11, 12, 13, 14, like that. So that's the careless of mind. And sometimes we lose the counting because our minds are confused. So we do not have to be careless, or we do not have to be confused. We have to practice the balanced mind. We have to practice the calmness of the mind. Therefore, we always try to come back to the counting. Do not underestimate counting as a very basic practice, because it's the foundation of the Satipatthana. Without this practice, it's very difficult to build the kind of the mind that we need to understand the way it is. So today I'm going to elaborate on the meaning of Smriti further, as we have seen that the Sati is mindfulness, is awareness, it's attentiveness in the 4 areas: the body, the Vedana, means feelings, the mind, Chitta, and the Dhamma, the way it is, the reality, or the Buddha's teachings. So one of the meanings of Smriti is to focus. And another aspect of the Smriti is to observe. And in our tradition, we call these 2 aspects as Samatha and Vipassana. And when we practice counting and follow the breathing, then naturally our mind gets quieter and quieter, and we establish our focus on around the nose, so that all our mind is focused on it, so that there is what is called in the traditional term as ekaggata. Ekaggata means all the things are coming to that point. All our energies are coming to that point. So when we practice samatha, it entails that we are doing no harm. And when we observe something, we are trying to hold on to the truth. We are trying to hold on to the Dhamma. We are trying to hold on to the way it is. So, the mind has a natural quality to arise. So it arises. So whenever mind arises, it's called the birth of the mind. So whenever there is a birth or the arising of the mind, it will be followed by the cessation of mind. The mind will die. So this arising and passing away of the mind we witness all the time. But when the mind is quiet, it's not arising. We can say that it's a right observation of the Dhamma. So I would like you to bear this principle in mind, that do not let the mind arise. Do not let the thoughts arise. Do not let the 5 sense doors to pull you away. In other words, we need to learn to control our mind, and that is what is the purpose of Smriti. So when the Smriti we practice so regularly, then what happens is that the Smriti act as a light or a lamp. So what is the purpose of the lamp? Is to destroy the darkness and to shine. So when the darkness is destroyed, we can see the way it is. Why there is a darkness in the mind, we are going to see in the subsequent classes in details. So for today, I thought I will begin with this brief discussion on what is Smriti. Is to establish, to focus, and to observe. Always bear these two things in mind. And the ultimate meaning of the Smriti is not to get attached anywhere, not to get attached to any sound, not to get attached to any thoughts, not to get attached to the the objects of the senses. In other words, let the mind settle. So when our mind settles, our breathing stops, our physical respiration is still down. And when that stops, as Dhanacharya Nagajiva has taught us, the skin starts breathing. And that's the first level of what is called the dhyana. And you are aware that our school is also called the dhyana school. So we have seen that the continuous practice on the day-to-day basis, 15-20 minutes, maybe twice in a day, is a key to success. This is how we train our minds, by gradually practicing every day for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so on and so forth. And then what happens is that our minds begin to settle down. And when our mind begins to settle down, our breath is still down. Our breath becomes very quiet, very calm. And when our breath becomes very calm and quiet, the thoughts do not arise in our mind. And whenever the mind moves, the breath moves. Whenever the breathing moves, our mind moves. And we have seen that the breathing has a direct connection with our body. You see, without the breathing, we cannot have the body, because the breathing is the condition for the body to arise. Without the process of breathing, the body cannot arise. And the way breathing rises and falls away, similarly, our body also rises and falls away. So we began our exploration of understanding what is Smriti and what is Pathan, and the 4 areas in which we have to establish our mindfulness or our Smriti. And the first area that we are studying right now is the area of Kaya. And the word for it is Kayanupasana. We are trying to be aware of the body. And we have seen that we begin the awareness of the body by the very condition which conditions our body, that is breathing. And we try to be aware. We try to bring our minds back to breathing all the time. Even if our minds are wandering, because it's not easy. We are conditioned to be pulled away, and that's why we have to practice. And in order to practice, we have to exert. We cannot be lazy. If we are lazy, we cannot practice. We have to have that enthusiasm. We have to have that exertion. We have to have that inspiration, so that we practice. It is called that the practice of Anapanasati is the practice of the heroes. A weakling cannot practice it. If we want to live a heroic life, we have to know how we can cut these 6 doors of corruption, this corrupted entity that hovers on our mind all the time and makes our mind agitated, makes our mind confused, makes our minds careless. Instead of that, this practice of mindfulness of breathing, which begins with the counting of the breath and the exercises I told you about, counting from 1 to 10 and finding for yourself whether your mind is careless or whether your mind is confused. And when we can naturally count up to 10 without getting confused or careless, then some stability of mind is attained. And that stability, that calmness of the mind is very important for a meditator to achieve. Okay, so when we are studying Satipatthana Sutta, please treat it as a training. Please treat it as the manual for towards enlightenment. Please treat it as a handbook which is guiding us as to how we can free our minds, how we can liberate our minds. And we have seen that the Satipatthana has the potential to liberate our minds. And as the Buddha says, those people whose mind is liberated, they are the great people, as we have seen in the last class. So my urge to all of you today is to please practice counting the breathing. And when we are established in the counting the breathing, then we feel that the counting is too much for us. Then our mind naturally follows the breathing. Okay, we do not need the counting, but you have to know it for yourself. When to when the counting is not needed, and when the counting is gone, then we just follow the breathing. And when our mind becomes more subtle, more stable, then we don't need to follow also, because following the breathing itself become a distraction for the mind. So we establish the mind at one particular point where the breathing touches. So we know that when we inhale or exhale, this is the point, the tip of the nose, where the breathing touches while we are inhaling or exhaling. So we try to establish our awareness there. And when our mind is fully settled, when our breathing is completely still down, our mind is still down, and we no longer need to have resort to what is called the physical breathing, because the breathing happens through the skin. But that's a long way to go. We have to keep on practicing. Now, why do we practice Smriti? Because we can experience the 4 levels of happiness. The number 1 level of happiness is that we know the essence of all the phenomena, and that gives us the happiness. We know the Dhamma of the Buddha, because the teachings of the Buddha are very precious. So when we know the Dhamma of the Buddha, we naturally become very happy. When our mind is focused, third way we become happy is when our mind is focused, we are happy. And when we know that this is the right practice, this is the right level of dhyana, we become happy. So our tradition, we can see that happiness is born out of our practice. We don't run after it. We don't crave after happiness. We don't practice for happiness. But the happiness is the byproduct of the practices that we are all practicing. So as we have seen that the mindfulness of breathing is very important. Very, very important. It is the foundation. It is the beginning. It is the essential thing. We cannot, just jump the levels. As I said, that we have to begin with the beginning. And when we have practiced enough, then we can choose for ourselves as to what kind of the meditation practice is beneficial to us, because we begin to know ourselves more and more. And when we begin to know more, ourselves more and more, we know, how we have to cultivate the practice. And there are so many practices here in the Satipatthana Sutta. So we have seen, when we are tried to study the Kayanupasana, the first thing was the Anapanasati, which we have been practicing for at least now 2 or 3 years. But don't leave it. Don't be lazy. Exert yourself and keep on practicing the mindfulness of breathing, because the mindfulness of a body begins with the mindfulness of the breathing. And we have seen that we have to cultivate the awareness of the body. And there is a catch here. We just don't cultivate the awareness of our own bodies, but we also cultivate the awareness of others' body. And that's very important in the practice. That when we cultivate our awareness of the body, of our own body, we also cultivate the awareness of the bodies around us. And unless we cultivate the awareness of body around us, we cannot have what is called the cleansing of the poison that are there in our mind all the time. And we are going to talk about the poisons of mind, or the stains on the mind, or the qualities that clouds our minds and not let us see the way it is. So the second aspect we have seen was about the body, our own physical body. We cultivate the mindfulness of our own physical body, and we also cultivate the mindfulness of the body of others. So we have seen that, and today we are going to enter into the third aspect of what is called Kayanupasana. And I am going to read, and then we are going to reflect on it. So the postures. Again, O monks, when a monk is walking, he knows I am walking. So likewise, when we have cultivated Anapanasati, or the stability, or the samatha of mind to some extent, we naturally bring that awareness to the postures of the body. And we know that we have only 4 postures. One, either we are walking, or we are standing, or we are sitting, or we are lying down. The human body takes these 4 postures. So when a monk is walking, he knows I am walking. When he is standing, he knows I am standing. When sitting, he knows I am sitting. When lying down, he knows I am lying down. Whatever is the activities of the body, likewise he knows. So you see, this bringing our awareness to the posture of the body is so important. It said that in the psychological term, it's very, very important for us to be grounded in our bodies. Those people who have psychological problems, they cannot keep the awareness of the body. Their minds are so, haywire. Their minds are running helter and kelter all the time, that they cannot be mindful of their own bodies. So what the Buddha is teaching in terms of the mindfulness of the posture is that when we are walking, we know that we are walking. When we are standing, we know that, we are standing. Sitting, we know that we are sitting. Lying down, we know that we are lying down. So a basic exercise that will help all of us to make our meditation very important, very easy, is when we sit for the meditation, just be aware, just be mindful that your body is in the sitting posture. This small awareness, when we practice shunya, when we become aware of a body, just become aware that you are sitting. Because that's the posture of your body when you are meditating. So bring that awareness, that gentleness of the awareness to your own sitting posture. In some of the schools, they teach that even to just sit is to be already a Buddha. That's one of the Japanese school of meditation. So we need to become aware. When we sit, we sit. When we walk, we walk. When we stand, we stand. When we lie down, we lie down. Isn't it? So we bring our awareness to these basic postures, and only 4 postures in which our body can be. And we have seen that either we are walking, or we are standing, or we are lying down, or we are sitting. So when in the meditation we are sitting, just become aware that you are sitting. Just become aware of the posture, the body that acquires. Just becoming mindful of the posture then and there is so much helpful when we are practicing the meditation or anapanasati. So likewise, we extend this awareness to others' body also. So we observe when other people are walking, we become aware that other people are walking. When they are sitting, we are aware that they are sitting. When they are standing, we are aware that they are standing. When they are lying down, we are aware that they are lying down. So you bring this awareness, this mindfulness, this sati of the posture to yourself and to others. Very important point to bear in mind, that bringing the awareness back to the posture, bringing the awareness back to the body is psychologically very healthy. If we can be mindful of our postures, it means that we can be grounded. We can be right there, as we have seen the word right here, right now. So that's the third section, third practice of the Kayanupasana. We have seen the mindfulness of breathing. We have seen the awareness of the body. Then we have seen the awareness of the postures. Now, activities of the body. So we know that, there are the 4 postures of the body, but there are various activities of the body. So let me read and then we will gloss over them. Activities. Furthermore, O monks, a monk goes forward or goes backwards. He knows it closely. When looking forward, looking behind, he knows it closely. When bending and stretching out, he knows it closely. When maintaining his robe and bowls, he knows it closely. While eating, drinking, savoring, he knows it closely. While defecating and urinating, he knows it closely. When walking, standing, sitting, lying, awaking, speaking in silence, he knows it closely. Because I told you that, this training is how we also control the body, because our body has a tendency to touch, has this craving to touch, So what we do, we try to guard our bodies like this. So whenever we are going forward, we are aware that we are going forward. When we are going backwards, we are aware that we are going backwards. When we are looking forward, we know that we are looking forward. When we are looking backwards, we know that we are looking backwards. When we are bending, we know that we are bending. So we bring that gentle quality of awareness to all the activities of the body. So when we are wearing the clothes, we know that we are wearing the clothes. Now, I told you that we don't have to become mechanistic. We don't have to become like a robot. We just bring that quality of awareness, which we have to some extent realized by practicing the counting and by practicing the following of the breathing and by stability of the mind. To whatever extent we bring that quality of the awareness to our postures and to our activities. While eating, because most of the time we are eating mechanically, we are not aware that we are eating. Just there are experiments like this. You take a fruit, we just eat the fruit. But imagine that if you are eating the fruit mindfully, like you are eating the apple mindfully, then you can feel the texture, you can feel the taste, you can feel the way it moves in our mouth, the way we chew it, and we can enjoy the complete eating of the apple. If we are not aware, then we just eat mechanically. Even the best food that is served to us, if we are not eating with mindfulness, that best food is of no use. Even if we are eating anything, if we can be mindful while eating, the taste changes. The flavor changes. You try to experiment this. When you eat, just eat mindfully. It is considered to be a very important practice. So in the Zen tradition, and we have seen in the retreats that has been conducted by Dhyanacharya Nagajiva, that we eat in silence. Why do we eat in silence? Because we are cultivating the mindfulness, mindful eating. And then when we are mindful while eating, we can begin to see, when we can analyze it, we can begin to see a lot of the truth in that. And eventually we will look into that. So eating, drinking, whenever we are drinking water, we have to be mindful. Just don't drink anything mechanically. Just don't drink anything, without awareness. Bring awareness to it. Souring, he knows it closely. Not only that, when we are answering the nature's call, we have to be mindful. We have to take our mindfulness to even toilet. Isn't it? It's not that this place is dirty, that place is dirty. The mindfulness can be practiced even in the toilets. We can be mindful while answering the nature's call. That is what the Buddha has taught us, the activities of the body. So we become aware when we are answering the nature's call, like defecating and urinating. So what we do, we bring our mindfulness to walking, to standing, to sitting, to lying down, to awaking, speaking in silence. We know it. So we do not do anything in the haste. We do not do anything carelessly. We do not do anything in a confused way. We do it with the stability of the mind. We do it with the calmness of the mind, which naturally comes, when we practice for a longer time. So this was the fourth aspect of the mindfulness of the body, being mindful of the activities of the body. And the fifth, and it's very, very interesting practice, scanning the body. So we know that our bodies are not just not just singular bodies. We have got, the external organs and we got internal organs. And the Buddha says that we have to understand the body as it is. And the reality of the body, not the reality of the body is that it's by nature impure. The body is full of impurities, but we are so much attached to our bodies to the extent that we become lustful towards body. And if our minds, as we have seen, are dominated by the lustful minds, by the lustful thoughts, then we cannot stabilize our minds. We cannot calm our minds. We cannot quieten our minds. Therefore, the Buddha says that become aware of the impurities of the body. The body is impure. That doesn't mean that we have to neglect the body, because body is our very important carrier towards enlightenment. We have to cherish the body, but we don't cherish the body at the cost of, becoming crazy after it, becoming crazy after body, becoming neurotic after the body. So we have to some extent, we have to learn to lessen our attachments towards the body. And that is what is the purpose of this fifth practice that the Buddha has taught. How do we do it? Scan the body. It's called the anatomy of the body as well. We try to understand the body as the body. This doesn't mean that we become a medical student and like a medical student, we try to postmortem our bodies. No, we are not trying to do that. We are trying to be generally aware of the various aspects of the body. So let me read and then we will gloss over it. Scanning the body. or becoming mindful of the anatomy of the body, being mindful of the body as it is. So this is what the Buddha says. Furthermore, O monks, a monk up from the sole of the foot, down from the hair of the head. You see, the sole of the feet are very sensitive. So we have to scan our body from the sole of our feet to the top of our head. That means we have to scan our body completely. So here is another hint. When we sit in the meditation, become aware of your posture and at the same time scan your body gently. How do we do the scanning? That's what the Buddha taught here. A monk up from the sole of the foot, down from the hair of the head, looks at this body full of impurities. It's in the Indian language, it's called asuchi. It's not pure. Our body is not pure. So how do we understand the impurity of the body? Look at this body full of impurities, enclosed by skin. Our body is enclosed by the skin. Okay, broadly, there is a skin and under which our body is enclosed, and then there are muscles, and broadly, and then there is a skeleton. There are the bones. So even if you become aware when we meditate from skin to the flesh, and then to the skeleton itself, to the bones itself, then that can also be called scanning the body. But we can go much deeper into it. How do we scan the body? There is in this body the hairs of the head and body. Okay, so we scan the body. We understand that there are hair on the head and there are hair on the body. The nails, teeth, skin, muscle, bone, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, the pleura, spleen, lungs, colon, intestine, stomach, feces, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, lymph, tears, fat, saliva, snot, body fluid, urine. So you see, there are like 32 impurities that we can all count. You know, if we look into our bodies are like, you know, it is said that there are 9 impure doors. You know, like from our eyes, when we get up in the morning, there is what is called the night soil in the eyes. In our ears, there is also some kind of a soil there. In our nose, we know that a lot of impurities come from our mouth. A lot of impurities come, and from the organs from which we answer the nature calls, they are also full of impurities. So you see that when we scan our body like this, we try to know the body as it is. We don't try to glamorize our body. We don't try to romanticize our body. We don't add anything to body. We just try to know the body as a body, and we try to scan our body from the sole of our foot to the head, and all the way from head to the sole of the feet, we scan the body. Now, as an exercise, when you sit in the meditation, after you have, when you are sitting in a posture, become aware of your body, then you bring that awareness to your source of the feet. You scan the source of your feet. You scan your palms. You scan your eyes. Because, you know, whenever our bodies, whenever our minds are not stable, then there is a lot of strain that we can feel on the soles of our feet. So you become aware of these very soft parts of your body. So you scan the body, bring your awareness to the soles of the feet, the way your body is sitting, bring your awareness to the skin, bring your awareness to the muscles and flesh, and bring your awareness to all the way to the bones. And if you want to do it, you can start doing your scanning from the feet all the way up to your inner body organs, the rise and fall of your stomach. Then you can become aware of, you know, we don't see the internal organs because, you know, our eyes cannot see inside, but we can become aware of what is happening in our body. We can become aware of our heart. We can become aware of our brain. And, you know, whenever our mind, our body, our brain is strained, then we see some kind of a tightness in the brain, and we can just relax our body. We can just, when we bring this scanning, when we do the scanning, our body becomes automatically, naturally calm and quiet. And as I told you, when our body becomes calm and quiet, our breathing becomes calm and quiet. And when our breathing becomes calm and quiet, our minds naturally become calm and quiet. So I am going to recommend you to practice, cultivating awareness by scanning the body. So let me read it very slowly so that we can understand what is scanning the body. Furthermore, O monk, a monk up from the sole of the foot, down from the hair of the head, looks at this body full of impurities, impure, body as impure, enclosed by skin, supported by the skeleton, by the bones. There is in this body the hair of the head and body, the nails, teeth, skin, muscle, bone, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, the pleura, spleen, lungs, colon, intestine, stomach, feces, bile, phlegm, pus or pus, blood, sweat, lymph, tears, fat, saliva, snot, body fluid, and urine. Just as though, now listen carefully, just as though, O monks, from the two openings bag full of various grains, this man endowed with eyes, having the bag loose, is to investigate it. These are fine rices, these are paddy rices, these are peas, these are beans, these are sesame, these are husked rice. So the Buddha is giving a very beautiful example. There is a bag full of all these grains. So when the both ends of the bags are loosened, you see all this content of the bag. So when the bag of a skin, when we investigate, when we become mindful, what we realize is that this body is made up of the muscles, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, and so on and so forth. And that's how we investigate. That's how we try to know the body as the body. That's how we try to scan the body, knowing the anatomy of the body. We don't have to be a medical student to do that. We just try to become aware of, our body as the body, our internal organs as the internal organs. And I recommend when next time you practice, you just scan your body. Bring your awareness to the soles of your feet, to your legs, to your thighs, to your sitting position. Bring your awareness to your spine. Bring your awareness to your shoulder, the back of the body, the front of the body. Bring your awareness to your face. Bring your awareness to your head. Bring your awareness to your ears. And then slowly you bring your awareness to your internal body organs. Like, scan your internal organs, like, become aware of the rise and fall of the belly, become aware of your heart that's pumping blood all the time, become aware of your throat, become aware of your brain, become aware of your eyes, and so on and so forth. So this is a very interesting practice and very important practice that I think we all need to, practice. The last part that today we are going to discuss is the practice of the elements, becoming aware of the elements. So according to the Indian tradition, they are called the four Mahabhutas or Bhutas, like Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu. If we know the Indian philosophy, we know these four words that in our body there is an element of earth. That doesn't mean that earth out there is inside us, the element of earth. That means the element of what is called the solidity. So, there is a solidity outside in the world. There is a solidity inside our body. There is an element of water. There is an element of fire, and there is an element of air. So our body is made up of all these elements. What are these elements? As I said, the earth, water, fire, and air. How do we understand them today? Like, for example, we know that, for example, water. We see water in the liquid form, but water can also become solid if we freeze it. When it becomes an ice, it becomes solid. The ice, the very ice itself, if we boil the water, it can become gases. If we understand the water at the molecular level, H2O, we can see the gases, the hydrogen and oxygen. So the purpose of understanding the elements of the body is this, that our body is composed of the four elements: the element of earth, the element of water, the element of fire, and the element of air. And we see that is also outside us. There is the earth outside us, there is the water element outside us, there is the element of fire outside us, and there is an element of air outside us. So we become aware of these elements by which our body is made up of. Now, if you want to be, the Buddha has taught, if you want to be a little bit creative, we can experience that the way our body is made up of earth, there is a earth outside, and the earth changes all the time. The way the earth element within us changes all the time. The water elements within us changes all the time. The fire element changes within us all the time. The element of air changes within us all the time. And here is a very vivid sort of a metaphor or the example that the Buddha gave. So let me read it. Elements. How do we become aware or, mindful of the elements? Furthermore, O monks, a monk looks at this body in terms of the elements. They are in this body. They are in this very body. And the Buddha said, body just as the body. They are in this body, the element of earth, the element of water, the element of air, the element of fire, just as though, O monk, a skilled butcher or butcher's apprentice, having killed a cow, was to sit down in great crosswords and butcher it into portions. Now, don't get frightened by the simile, because cow is a sacred, isn't it? So this is an example of, how we should analyze the elements of our body. We don't bring any sacredness to the body. We just observe the body as it is. And what the Buddha says, just like the butcher will, examine the various parts and the various portions of the cow's body, we likewise try to become mindful of the elements of earth, of water, of fire and air. So for example, there's the bones. We can categorize the bones as the element of solid. The blood and all sort of these impure flows that are flowing inside our body, we can categorize them as water. The vitality that makes me speak with you can be categorized as the fire, and when I breathe in and out, that's an air element. So we become mindful of the element themselves. So to summarize for today, and there are some practices that we have to take away from today's class, is we have to bring awareness to our postures. So when we are walking, we are aware. We bring that mindfulness, the stability of the mind, that when we are walking, we are walking. I am walking. When he's standing, he knows he's standing. When sitting, knows sitting. When lying down, knows lying down. So only 4 postures that our body can take. And then we have different activities of the body. Like, we look forward, we look backward, we go forward, we go backwards, we bend, we stretch out. We know when we are doing that. When we are wearing the clothes, we know that we are wearing the clothes. When we are eating, we know, we are mindful that we are eating. When we are drinking, we bring that mindfulness to our drinking. Savoring, we bring that mindfulness to all the body activities. We bring the mindfulness also to when we are answering the nature's call. So there is no sacred place. Anywhere we can practice mindfulness. We can bring mindfulness to anywhere. So while defecating and urinating, we know that we are defecating and we are urinating. When walking, standing, sitting, lying, awaking, speaking in silence, he knows it closely. That means we are trying to control our bodies, not forcibly, naturally. When we bring that awareness to our body is naturally, controlled. We don't force it. When we are aware, our body is naturally in the proper shape. The fifth practice that we've seen is scanning the body. We can do that when we sit for a meditation. Become aware of your posture and scan your body. Bring your awareness to the sole of your feet, to your legs, to your thighs, to your spine, to your back, to your front of the body, to your shoulders, to your complete skin. Become aware. Then you become aware of your internal body organs. The rise and fall of tummy, the heart, the brain. We become aware of all the things that are there in our body. We scan our body. We try to know, we become aware of the hair of the head and body, the nails, the teeth, skin, so on and so forth, 32 impurities. And we know, we begin to understand our body as impure, because we are cherishing our body with very neurotic urge. We are so much attached to our body. We see that the bodies are beautiful. There is no harm in that. Keeping our body healthy. We have to keep our body healthy. But the excessive attachment to the body is a cause of suffering. If we don't see the body as it is, then it gives rise to the lustful mind. And when our mind is full of lust, we cannot stabilize our mind. So that's why we practice what is called the scanning the body. And the sixth practice that we have seen is becoming aware of the elements by which our body is made up of. And in other words, our body is made up of the element of earth, our body is made up of element of water, element of fire, and the element of air. So when we become aware of our body like this, our mind naturally gets very stable. And we become more and more and more and more mindful. And when we become more and more mindful, then our breathing becomes very, if our breathing is stilled. When our breathing is stilled, our mind is stilled, and the mind doesn't arise. And when the mind doesn't arise, that is the ultimate realization, that is the ultimate freedom from what is called the birth and death. But we are not going to look into that tonight. I would stop here. And if there are any questions, any reflections on your part, let's look at them. Is anyone having any question to ask or anything to share? Yes, Raj, please. Raj.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
हमें एक तो ब्रीथिंग को ऑब्जर्व करना है फर्स्ट तो, फिर इसके बाद में जैसा कि आपने बताया कि भाई महसूस करना है थाइस को, पैरों को, कंधों को। तो ये जो स्थिति है ये मतलब जैसे डबल काउंट है या जो येलो बेल्ट है बिल्कुल साइलेंस उसमें होगा या किसी में भी कर सकते हैं इसको?
देखिए, पहला तो ऐसा है कि जैसे मैंने बताया कि पहले तो हमें जो है हमारे माइंड को थोड़ा स्टेबलाइज करना है
जी।
ठीक है, तो थोड़ा स्टेबलाइज करना है मतलब क्या है कि थोड़ा हम बैठ के काउंटिंग कर लिए, रिवर्स काउंटिंग, तो हमारा माइंड थोड़ा जो है वो काम एंड क्वाइट हो गया। ठीक है, तो वो जो अवेयरनेस है, वो जो स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ माइंड है, वो जो अवेयरनेस है पूरे बॉडी में, बॉडी को फील करना, बॉडी के बारे में अवेयर होना। ठीक है, बॉडी के बारे में अवेयर होना और अपने पोस्चर के बारे में जागरूक होना कि मैं बैठा हूं, मैं खड़ा नहीं हूं।
जी।
ठीक है, और हमारी जो अवेयरनेस है वो धीरे धीरे जो है वो हमारी बॉडी की तरफ लाना। जैसे कि मान लो हम जो है स्कैनिंग द बॉडी, तो सोल्स ऑफ द फीट, जो हमारे पैर के तलवे होते हैं उसकी तरफ अवेयरनेस लेके जाना। जैसे हम श्वास के बारे में अवेयर हो रहे हैं ना, वैसे थोड़ी सी अवेयरनेस जो है वो सोल्स ऑफ फीट की तरफ लेके जाना। ठीक है, और पूरे अवेयरनेस जो है वो बॉडी को स्कैन करना, पहले बाहर की बॉडी को स्कैन करना। ठीक है, हम बैठे हैं, हमारा स्पाइनल कॉर्ड जो है, हमारी रीढ़ की हड्डी सीधी है, हमारी जो गर्दन है सीधी है, हमारे जो शोल्डर है हॉरिजेंटल है ना, बहुत ही मतलब एकदम सहज गति से, सहज स्वभाव से बैठे हुए हैं। तो अवेयरनेस लाने का, अपने बॉडी की तरफ लेके आने का स्कैन करके। ठीक है, फिर अवेयरनेस जो है हमारी, जो अपनी अवेयरनेस जो है इनर बॉडी ऑर्गन्स होते हैं ना, जैसे जो पेट है हमारा वो राइज एंड फॉल हो रहा है। फिर हम अपने हार्ट के बारे में अवेयरनेस रख सकते हैं कि हमें हार्ट भी है, जो प्रतिशत जो है वो ब्लड ये कर रहा है। फिर हमारा थ्रोट है, ब्रेन है, राइट। तो इस प्रकार हमको स्कैन करना है। फिर अगर आपने सोल से शुरू किए, हेड तक आए, फिर हेड से शुरू करके आप नीचे भी जा सकते हैं। तो इससे एक होगा कि आपकी जो बॉडी है वो काम हो जाएगी, शांत हो जाएगी। और जितनी आपकी बॉडी शांत हो जाएगी उसके उतनी अपनी जो ब्रीदिंग है वो शांत हो जाएगी।
जी।
और जितनी आपकी ब्रीदिंग शांत हो जाएगी, आपका मन उतना स्टेबल हो जाएगा।
जी।
माइंड, बॉडी और ब्रीदिंग का रिलेशनशिप।
जी।
जिस वक्त ब्रीदिंग स्टील हो जाएगी, माइंड अपने आप स्टील हो जाएगा।
जी।
ठीक है, और जिस दिन तो बॉडी की जो एक्टिविटीज है वो भी आपको मतलब महसूस होगी।
जी।
ठीक है, तो ये समझ गए आपको?
हाँ जी, थैंक यू।
तो जैसे जैसे मान लो हमारी अवेयरनेस हम बढ़ा रहे हैं, तो शुरुआत में भी कर सकते हैं हमारे बॉडी के बारे में अवेयरनेस,
जी हाँ।
फिर श्वास की तरफ आ सकते हैं। तो जैसे आपको अच्छा मतलब जैसे कंफर्टेबल फील होता है वैसे आप करिए।
जी
ओके।
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू।
हाँ राज भाई। ललित भाई। हाँ ललित भाई। ललित जी, योर हैंड इज रेज्ड।
गुड मॉर्निंग सर।
गुड मॉर्निंग ललित भाई।
सर फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल योर हिंदी इज वेरी गुड सर, तो आई विश आप बहुत जल्दी हमें एक हिंदी सेशन देंगे।
हिंदी भी लेंगे।
तो सर बहुत अच्छा लगेगा, एक बार और हमारा
जी
दोबारा रिवीजन हिंदी में हो जाएगा। और
जी
सेकंड मेरी एक रिक्वेस्ट है
जी सर।
कि एक्चुअली हम लोग स्टॉक पॉइंट भी देखते हैं, तो बीच बीच में क्या होता है, कई बार डिस्ट्रैक्ट से हो जाते हैं, तो कई बार कुछ चीजें छूट जाती है।
जी जी जी।
तो सर अभी जो आप पढ़ाते हैं, तो सर डॉक्टर लिम जब हम पढ़ाते थे तो वो पीडीएफ साथ में चलाते थे सर उस पे स्क्रीन पे।
हाँ
तो सर अगर वो चलेगा तो हमें थोड़ा सा जैसे हमें दोबारा से समझ आ जाएगा कि हम यहाँ से पढ़ रहे हैं या यहाँ से देख रहे हैं। तो सर अगर वो
मतलब
और हो जाए तो बहुत अच्छा है सर।
ललित भाई, मैं ये सोच रहा था कि जो अगर स्क्रीन पे अगर हम लोग टेक्स्ट लाते हैं तो फिर डिस्ट्रैक्शन हो जाता है।
अच्छा
तो मुझे सबसे विनती ये है कि जैसे एक ही पेज पढ़ रहे हैं
जी
हम बहुत स्लो जा रहे हैं, तो मुझे आप सबसे गुजारिश है कि आप कृपया जो है ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ टाइम उस पेज को पढ़िए।
सर, पढ़ तो लिया था वैसे मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले, बट वही कि सर एकदम से वो कई बार मिस्ड आउट हो जाती हैं, क्योंकि वो बस बर्बरी तौर पे कई बार पढ़ा जाता है।
जी जी
तो
जी जी जी। तो क्या,
दिक्कत कभी हो जाती है।
तो ललित जी क्या करना है हमको, जो हमारे जो क्लासेस है उसको मतलब बारंबार जो है सुनना है।
जी
ठीक है, क्योंकि क्या है, इतना इजी नहीं है ये डायरेक्ट जो है जो पूरी जो
वही
टोटल
सर, वही वो इतना इजी जितना दिख रहा है उतना इजी नहीं है सर।
इतना इजी नहीं है, लेकिन क्या है, हम बार बार अगर पढ़ते हैं कंसेप्ट को समझते हैं तो इजी हो जाता है।
डायमंड सूत्रा अब तक शायद 50-60 बार पढ़ चुका हूँ, बट अभी भी ऐसा लगता है कि बहुत कुछ समझना बाकी है। जितनी बार पढ़ते हैं उतनी बार नया लगता है।
लेकिन ललित भाई, आपको प्रैक्टिस समझ गई क्या?
सर कोशिश तो करता हूँ कि जो
मैं
आप
आपको
बता रहे हैं उसे फॉलो
मैं,
करूँ।
मैं आपको हिंदी में समझाता हूँ। जैसे मान लो कि हम गणना करते हैं, काउंटिंग द ब्रीदिंग।
जी जी
ठीक है, तो हम रिवर्स काउंटिंग करते हैं। रिवर्स काउंटिंग क्यों करते हैं? क्योंकि हमारा मन जो है, जो हमारी इंद्रिय
काम है।
होते हैं,
जी जी
हमारे जो 6 इंद्रिय होते हैं वो हमारे भटकाते हैं हमें। तो हम
जी
क्या
जी।
करते हैं कि वो जो 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 6 करप्शंस है उससे कट करने के लिए हम हमारे माइंड को जो है ब्रीदिंग की तरफ लाते हैं। और डायरेक्ट हम ब्रीदिंग को फॉलो नहीं कर सकते, इसलिए हम काउंटिंग करते हैं ब्रीदिंग की।
यस सर।
ठीक है।
माइंड को अपने एक कंफ्यूजन देने के लिए।
ये एग्जैक्टली अपने माइंड को स्टेबल करने के लिए। तो जैसे
हाँ
एक बैल होता है, और बैल को ट्रेनिंग नहीं है तो क्या होगा, इधर उधर भागेगा खेत पे।
बिल्कुल
तो
सर,
क्या
बिल्कुल।
करते हैं, खूंटे से बांधते
खूंटे
हैं।
के साथ बांध देंगे। जी जी
समझ गए? तो जब हम खूंटे से बांधते हैं तो बैल थोड़ा इधर उधर भागता है, फिर उसके बाद बैठ जाता है।
जी जी।
तो वैसे ही हमारा माइंड जो है इधर उधर भागेगा, इंद्रियों जो इंद्रिय है उनसे, और फिर बाद में स्टेबल हो जाएगा।
सर एक चीज का थोड़ा कंफ्यूजन मुझे आज थोड़ा सा संशय हुआ था। मैंने
बोलिए।
इससे पहले पढ़ा था, तो अक्सर एक जिक्र आता है ए मॉन्क। तो
हम्म।
क्या ये केवल मॉन्क बनने की ओर जा रहे हैं हम लोग
नहीं
धीरे
नहीं
धीरे?
नहीं 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 नहीं, ललित जी, जैसे हमने पहला क्लास अगर आप सुनेंगे तो
हाँ
पहले क्लास में अगर आपने देखा होगा कि ये मंक्स के लिए नहीं है, सभी के लिए है।
हाँ हाँ
जैसे मान लो बॉडी है, सिर्फ मंक को ही क्या, हमको भी है।
हाँ हाँ
जो फीलिंग्स है हमें भी है, चित्त
हाँ।
है, माइंड हमें भी है। हम भी रियलिटी को मतलब जो है वो समझ सकते हैं। तो ये किसी स्पेशल व्यक्ति विशेष के लिए नहीं है,
हम्म,
ये हर ह्यूमन बीइंग को एड्रेस किया हुआ है।
जी।
आप समझ रहे हैं? ये हर ह्यूमन
हम्म,
बीइंग को एड्रेस किया हुआ है। इट्स फॉर एवरीबडी, एनीबडी हु वुड लाइक टू प्यूरिफाई देमसेल्व्स। किसी को भी अपने अपनी अपनी शुद्धिकरण करना है, किसी को भी मुक्त होना है, उसके लिए ये मार्ग है।
बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल।
ठीक है, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हम मंक्स बन रहे हैं या मंक्स बनना, ऐसा नहीं है। वी कैन
सर
प्रैक्टिस
एक्चुअली
वेयर।
जैसे कभी हम बात करते हैं तो कई बार एक दो बार सवाल भी आता है। जैसे अभी एक रीड कैंप हुआ था, तो वहां उन्होंने एक जिक्र छेड़ दिया था कि आप बुद्ध की बार बार बात करते हैं, तो क्या आप हमें बुद्धिस्ट बनाने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं?
नहीं नहीं
तो
नहीं 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 नहीं
काफी
नहीं।
क्लैरिफिकेशन हो गया था उसका, बट ये है कि जैसे अक्सर हम मॉन्क का भी जिक्र कर रहे हैं बार बार,
जी जी जी।
तो वो थोड़ा सा सर एक कभी कभी संशय पैदा कर देता है मन में।
नहीं नहीं नहीं, क्या है कि जो ये भी जो जो पूरी टीचिंग है बुद्ध की, वो है निर्वाण की तरफ लेके जाने वाली। उसमें आपको
जी
कन्वर्ट नहीं होना है।
जी जी।
ठीक है, आपको अगर आपको लगता है तो आप उसे ट्राई करिए, आपको फायदा होता है तो आप करिए।
श्योर सर, श्योर श्योर।
ठीक है। ओके पवन जी, यू हैव रेज्ड योर हैंड।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू ललित भाई। पवन जी। पवन जी आप अनम्यूट करिए. हाँ, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, is it audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you very much, Brother Mangesh, for wonderful session, and especially the way you lucidly explained. In today's session, you covered anatomy, biochemistry, and physiology. I was thinking that I was sitting in medico class for some time.
Yes.
So, as you were talking about mindfulness, senses, then breathing and breathing through other senses like nose, lungs, skin, etc. So, I just want to ask you that are you saying with practice, and continuous practice, this skin breathing will be like or equivalent to our nasal breathing?
See, actually, this what is called when our mind, when our breathing is stabilized. Okay, when it becomes subtle. Now it's very gross. But when we become more and more aware, our breathing become very fine, very refined. And a stage happens where our mind is still down. Our mind doesn't move. Most of the times, our minds are moving, isn't it? So when our mind is completely stilled, the breathing, the physical breathing is automatically stopped because there is no causes and condition for the breathing to happen because the mind has stopped. Now we are talking about a very high level that we have to, continuously practice. Maybe one day we can experience that. It's called the first dhyana. Okay, so when our mind is stilled, when our mind is stopped, then the physical activity of the breathing, nasal breathing stops.
Okay, means you want to say that whether we are taking inhale or exhale, we just forget that.
Yeah, we just forget. We don't make into hard and fast.
Okay, we just cross that state,
Yeah.
and we come to that stage only.
So that will automatically happen when our mind is, getting rid of the impurities, when our mind is getting rid of poisons, like we are going to look at them, raga, dosa, and moha, that begins to happen. And when that happens, our mind is stopped. And when our mind is stopped, there is no birth, there is no death.
Okay.
So we are talking at a very higher level.
Right.
But this is just by the way of inspiring or a clarification. We are speaking like that. But when that, see, the fetus is not breathing through nose because it's in the liquid. It cannot breathe through the nose.
Very true.
Okay, so they breathe through their bodies, skin.
Yes.
So naturally, we Dr. Lim can explain it better as to how that happens. So we can put up that question in the group for Dr. Lim. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, anybody else? Because we have to end at 7 o'clock. If not, then we will conclude our class for today. My only request to all of you to please keep on practicing. Counting the breath, reverse counting, then test your carelessness, whether you are careless or whether you are confused. Count up to 10, and then if you overshoot, then you know that you are careless. If you undershoot, you are confused. So you have to acquire that stability of the mind, which naturally comes when we become aware through the counting of the breathing, following the breathing, establishing the awareness, at the tip of nose. When our mindfulness is established, then we begin to see. The Smriti is called light. The light has two purposes. It dispels the darkness and it shines. So when it dispels the ignorance, whatever remains is the Dhamma, is the truth, is the way it is. And when we experience that way it is, we are free, we are liberated, we are not confined to the cycles of arising and passing away. So with this, I end today. Thank you so much for joining, and see you in the next week. If you do not follow anything, please watch the video that is available, will be shared to you all again and again. Thank you so much.
Manjunath ji.
Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Okay, Sneha, continue.
Okay. Good morning, all of you. So thank you so much, sir, for wonderful teaching, and I'm waiting for your next session. Once again, thank you so much, sir. So wind up this session, sir.
Yes, he's gone. Then we will wind up the session.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for joining. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Sneha. Thank you one and all. So I'm going to officially wind up the session.